Come with me to a magical place where being labeled the pork queen is a compliment, where being nice is just a way of life, and where all leaders of the free world must pass through. Welcome to Iowa. Whether you're a current Iowan, an Iowa expat, or an Iowan at heart, this show is for you. This is the Iowa Podcast. Real Iowans, real talk, no drama. I'm Justin Brady, and joining me today is Colin Hurd, the CEO of Mach. Colin, thank you so much for coming on the Iowa Podcast. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, Justin. It's good to be here.
We hear about AI, artificial intelligence, in the news quite often, but you know what? Who practically cares? And does this impact Iowans? Well, actually, it does impact Iowa farmers, and that's what we're going to be talking about today with Colin. But before we get to that, have you subscribed yet? It's really easy to do that. Just go to iowapodcast.com, no matter where you're listening right now, and there are a bunch of badges up there, like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeart, all the badges. Make sure to subscribe, and if your player allows you, give this 5 stars, okay? So, Colin, you're doing some kind of cool stuff right here in Iowa, which we're going to talk about autonomous farming. That's what we're going to be talking about today, and all the technology that goes into doing that and why an Iowa farmer would care. But first, I think let's start broadly. Do you have like a 30, because you're a startup guy, you're a tech guy, do you have like a brief 30-second pitch that you can tell us what Mach does? Like, what role do you play in autonomous farming? I think we should start there.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Well, don't hold me to 30 seconds. This is a pretty new venture that we're just kicking off here. So the pitch is getting polished, if you will.
That's fine.
But yeah, so Mach was formed really with the basic purpose of providing advanced autonomy technology to OEMs in the ag space, which is a big focus of ours, but also in other off-road heavy machinery spaces.
So OEMs being original equipment manufacturers. So you are not providing technology directly to farmers then, right? It's going to like tractor manufacturers essentially?
Yep, exactly. So we would sell only through equipment manufacturers. And it doesn't necessarily just have to be tractor manufacturers, right? There's a lot of autonomy. Well, it's more automation that happens behind the hitch of a tractor. And that's an area of focus for us as well.
Oh, behind the hitch. That's interesting. Okay. So, like, how would this be different then from, obviously everybody around here is familiar with John Deere, right? Everybody in Iowa is familiar with John Deere. I think the beginning of the year they released or announced the 8R. It's like a fully autonomous tractor. So how is what you're doing different from that? Yeah,
in a number of ways. I'm glad you brought it up because it's a good example of how Mach can actually support efforts like what John Deere is doing with their autonomous tractor and what C&H is doing with their autonomous vehicles as well. So often people kind of forget the fact that you can have a fully autonomous tractor, but unless there's a job that's also automated with it, it's pretty useless, right? So no one buys a tractor just to drive it around in circles. So, every time someone is going to invest in a autonomous tractor, they're looking to do a specific job with it, right? And so Deere, with their release, has automated part of the tillage operations. But there's a number of things that people want to do with tractors, whether it's baling hay or pulling a grain cart or, doing planting or seeding. So a lot of what a company like Mach is focused on is providing the OEMs, the folks who make the implements that go behind the tractor, technology so that when that implement is used with a fully autonomous tractor, that all the smarts and technology that's needed to tie in and essentially know what's happening behind the hitch is in place so that you really can have a seamless operation occur.
Got it. So if you okay, so if John Deere is making, we'll compare this for our non-farmer listeners. We have a lot of farmer listeners, so they probably understand exactly what you're saying. But for the non-farmer listeners or the more generalists, what you're basically saying, and of course, Colin, correct me if I'm wrong, but what you're basically saying is if the John Deere 8R, or I think Case IH might have some autonomous stuff coming out too, and a bunch of other manufacturers like Kubota, Mahindra, Massey Ferguson. If those are like the iPhone, right? The smart AI iPhone, you're making the AirPods. You're kind of making the AirPods Pro and all these like accessories that go along with that machine to accomplish different tasks.
Yeah, and I would even kind of take it a step further maybe and say, it's not a perfect analogy. It's a pretty good one though. And we're making a lot of the apps for that iPhone.
Ooh,
right?
That's good too. Yeah.
What sometimes when you buy an iPhone, right, you get some default apps that come from Apple, and so we would expect that Deere and others will provide a number of those apps, like the phone app or the calculator, whatever you have. But if you think about the number of apps that are on your iPhone today or your smartphone, a number of those are not made by Apple, right?
Mm-hmm,
but they
correct,
still provide a ton of value in your day-to-day life and allow you to use that phone for all the things you want.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So do you actually, looking 10, 20 years down the road then, do you worry about some of these companies not playing ball with you and you have to like develop a completely separate technology that works without their blessing?
There's that possibility, I think, to a degree. But, I, over the last 2 years, 2.5 years, I worked at Raven and as a part of that at Case IH. And one of the things I realized is they don't necessarily always want to do everything.
Yeah.
There's elements of the market where they kind of leave it to short line manufacturers or middle market OEMs to solve unique challenges. And so I think there's always going to be that market that exists. And my perspective, and I think some of the large OEMs share this, is that the more open they are, the more success they can have in terms of selling autonomous vehicles.
Oh yeah, obviously. That makes a lot of sense. So what is the state of autonomous today in farming? Is it pretty common? Is it 1% of farm equipment out there is autonomous? I think one of the most surprising thing to non-farmers is how high-tech farmers are. I don't know if you are a YouTuber, but like that Smarter Everyday channel. I think Destin is the guy's name. And they did a thing on like irrigation. And the first thing he asks is, I bet you have all this on your phone, don't you? Because he goes like, farmers are super high tech. And I think the general public and especially city dwellers are always a little shocked when they realize just how much like technology and satellite and autonomous stuff farmers are already using even before much of the general population. So as far as autonomous farming, is that already pretty much catching on, or is it still kind of in its infancy stages?
So I'll make a distinction here between automation and autonomy. I think we're as an industry kind of figuring out terms for stuff, but in terms of automation in ag and in farming, we're very advanced, and I would say 90+% of modern farms are using some level of automation, whether that is as simple as rate control or auto guidance, GPS steering, right?
You said what percentage do you think? And obviously this is a guess.
I would guess 90% of modern farms are using some level. Yep. And then in terms of autonomy, which I would classify as self-driving, right?
Right.
Operator optional. Farming, we're at the very, very infancy of it, right? It's not widely adopted. And I kind of want to talk a little bit about the background in terms of how Mach was formed, and share a little bit about kind of how it came to be in terms of the structure and the partners that are involved in that, because I think it tells a story about the state of autonomy in ag.
That's fine. If we want to talk about that, that's fine. I know that LSA Autonomy and Red Shield partnered to form Mach, right?
Correct.
So,
Yeah. Yep.
LSA, I mean, maybe this is a good place to start. LSA actually has a really fascinating history in like Army operations, right?
They do. Yeah. So they are former. They were doing a lot of DoD work, right, for the Department of Defense, and have a really diverse background in automating a wide variety of vehicles for different purposes. So autonomous surveillance vehicles, and then kind of where they came onto my radar in earnest was their work with a company called Gus. Gus makes a system. Gus actually stands for Global Unmanned Spray System. So it's a blast sprayer for orchards. And what was so impressive to me about Gus and LSA's involvement was it was one of the most widely used fully autonomous applications or machines that I had seen in ag to date, right? They have, a large number of customers that are out there using a fully autonomous vehicle every single day in their orchard operations. And so it was just a really great example of, I think, what's to come in ag and in farming, where Gus did a fabulous job of building a great vehicle platform. They paired that with LSA's technology, which is now Mach's technology, to build a really useful solution. So I think it's an indication of what's to come. So it was very exciting to be able to work with that team and be able to bring that technology forward on a broader basis now.
Yeah, because LSA had a history doing some pretty wacky stuff. Like they, a few things come to mind, and I maybe you can expand on how this relates to Mach, right, and the usefulness here. But they were doing autonomous perimeter security and roadside hazard detection for the U.S. Army. There were also some U.S. Navy and NOAA uses as well. But what is autonomous perimeter security and roadside hazard detection, and what is that stuff? We'll start there, and then how does that apply to farming?
Yeah, absolutely. So I kind of like to boil autonomous technology down into three core components, because for a non-tech guy like me, then it's easier to understand. But there's really what I would call navigation, path planning, and vehicle control is kind of one core component of that. So whether you're running in their case, it was a utility vehicle around a perimeter of a base, doing surveillance and checking, making sure there's no hazards. That required path planning, it required navigation, and it required control of that vehicle. So that core competency has existed with them for a long time, and it's been very well developed. The other side of that is communication. So the second pillar is understanding where that vehicle is, being able to communicate with it remotely on site, and having a system and an infrastructure set up so you can track it and control it. And really the third pillar, which you brought up, is which I call it vision or perception, right? So understanding something about the environment that the vehicle is in. So situational awareness, knowing, hey, is there a wall in front of me? Is there a fence? Is there a person? What is it, right? So the project that you brought up in terms of roadside hazard detection is a great example of that, where they're looking, using cameras, solutions, and machine learning to identify if there's people potentially in the path of a roadside mower, for example. And so I think that that core competency exists, and you need those same things in ag. So if you're, regardless of the application that you're trying to do, you need to be able to communicate, you need to be able to control, and you have to be able to perceive.
Right, because that kind of stuff, it's like, almost a land-based drone. Some people can maybe you'll think of it that way. I think people are familiar with like drones that fly, but it's land-based, and it's obviously autonomous too. Maybe this is not the best example, but when you drive around, there's debris, and teaching a computer, in at least engineers in the industry call it computer vision, right? And teaching a computer how to see things sounds kind of simple because we're all humans, but when you actually look at photos and you realize an object if it's lit differently, if it's different environmental conditions, if it has different foregrounds or backgrounds, if it's at a different angle, it's skewed, you start to realize that you as a person have millions of different impressions of a single object just stored in your brain that you immediately recognize. But a computer doesn't have that. And so it's actually very hard when you look at what a computer has to realize or has to process. It's actually like, it sounds way more hard when you look at photos, right? It's a very difficult task. And so basically this autonomous perimeter security, it was a vehicle just driving around a base and finding out if there were things that should be concerning and just automatically reporting that to people. This is basically what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yep. So I think in the past they had to, put a soldier, an infantryman on that vehicle and send him out there all night, night to drive around and check things. I mean, the military has access to some technology that would never make sense on the farm, probably in terms of expensiveness and also just what it's capable of. I mean, they can see things for miles out in dark and in the desert, right? But the basic principles of what allows that to be useful for the military apply in a lot of ways to ag. And so it was exciting to see how they had already made that transition to a degree as they started working with Gus.
Yeah, I mean, so there are a few obvious questions in this space, right? Like the first one is, do you see a quickly approaching future where farmers aren't even in the fields anymore? How far off would you put that?
Yeah, and it's an interesting question. I think probably I don't think this will cause farmers to not be in the field. I think what it will actually do is allow them to be in the field more. So a lot of times what I hear from farmers is, I'm stuck in the cab of my tractor all the time. I should be getting out and checking things a lot more than I actually have time to do.
Yeah.
And so I think in a lot of cases, what you'll start to see is this, the relationship between a farmer and his tractor won't always be physically tied together, but it will still be there. They'll still have oversight and control of it. But having that tractor be capable of doing the job largely with no operator in the cab will give that farmer time to dedicate to things that really can help improve agronomics on his farm and help improve the overall efficiency of his operation by making sure that the job quality is really where he wants it to be.
Right, because there are so many jobs that require creativity and ingenuity and problem solving, and you can't do that crap when you're sitting in a cab all day just mindlessly going in circles, right? That I know that drives farmers crazy because they don't want to burn their time just sitting there in the chair. They want to get out there and actually do the job. And it's no different than retail, right? Like people talk about AI taking all retail employees' jobs, and go ask a general manager of a Hy-Vee or any shopping center, retail shopping center. If I gave you an extra $100,000, what would you do? They're all going to say, well, I need more people because I need more people to do X, Y, and Z. And right now I don't have those people because I simply can't afford it in the budget. And farmers are no different, right? They have huge scale of what they're wanting to do, and they could really use their hands to be solving more problems if they weren't stuck in a cab. Does autonomous farming, AI farming, all these cool technologies, do they present new advantages to farmers that they don't presently have? I think, as you correctly pointed out, some people always think of losing jobs when AI comes in place, which all the data shows that's actually not going to happen. Right. So are there advantages that farmers have with this technology that presently they can't do?
Yeah, I think so. Farming is a vastly complex space, and there's just tons of variables to it. So it's going to differ a lot, I think, farm to farm. But and if I was to make some generalizations, I would say they're going to be able to do more with the same amount of equipment, which is always a threshold that a lot of farms are bumping up against. Right? When do I make the capital investment to expand my equipment fleet or the size of my current equipment so I can accommodate more acres? With this technology integrated, they'll be able to run around the clock if they want. And, the operator fatigue side of it is lessened. I would say the other side is like safety increases, right? Farming has historically been one of the most dangerous jobs
really
to be in. And a big part of that is because of the close proximity of people and machinery, really heavy duty, powerful machinery. You always hear those horror stories of a farmer getting his coveralls wrapped up in a PTO or something and losing his life. And I think a big part of what excites me about integrating this type of technology is that it allows there to be a distance where the farmer still has complete control and oversight of machinery, but he doesn't have to be there physically monitoring it to understand that it's working the way he wants it to and getting the job done. And even probably a even more direct element of this is as we put machine vision into place, a lot of the machines will have the capability of detecting when someone is in a hazard area that's designated around the machine and actually prevent a accident from happening kind of proactively by saying, look, somebody's within this hazard zone, I need to shut down quickly, or if it's moving, stop or plan a path around a person.
Right. It's basically increasing control and flexibility of equipment, but decreasing the amount of physical contact you need to control it, right? Like,
absolutely.
There is a company called, and this was a past client, RoboFlow, great company here in Des Moines. Mm-hmm. But there was one of their clients, I don't even remember the name of the company. I'm not even sure if it's public information, but I'll just be general. They are working on computer vision, kind of like what you're talking about, where heavy machinery, and this is more of a workshop kind of thing under a roof in a manufacturing facility, but heavy machinery is looking at safety gear and type of gloves being used and type of loose clothing. And if workers are getting too close to certain machinery that's moving, kind of like what you were indicating earlier, the machinery powers down or slows down, or in some cases just stops entirely because it notices and recognizes an unsafe work environment. And so like this, what you're talking about for those listening, and they're like, well, that's probably like 50 years. No, that's actually happening now in testing environments. Mm-hmm. And that is a really, really good point that I hadn't even considered is if you have cameras watching, various farm tasks, for lack of a better word, those cameras can also be looking at safety environments. Does this are you also working on technology or industry-wide technology that's going to lessen reliance on like pesticides and weed control because it can do that like manually or with robots?
Yeah, I mean, I guess we're not actively looking at that right now. There is a lot of technology that's been developed in that space already, Justin. So it's not a key area of focus for us. I think what we want to do is enable companies that do have that technology to deploy it, in a more autonomous fashion. But there is a lot of great technology companies, especially when you kind of get into the West Coast scene where we're growing a lot of produce organically. There is a huge demand and need for kind of either machine vision based weeding solutions or machine vision based spraying solutions to minimize the use of pesticides, herbicides, and just really take a lot of the labor that's historically been in that out of the equation.
So would you normally be selling your technology in is your stuff mostly hardware, mostly software based? I'm thinking it's probably software.
Yeah, it's both,
okay.
Honestly. So that was just kind of to tie back in the Red Shield, right? So one of the things that was really impressive about them, and they're a smaller company based in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. They Rhett, the founder of that, has spent his career developing ag technology, hardware and software. Started out initially at John Deere and then went to TopCon and has kind of been on an entrepreneurial path. But he just, with that experience, was able to build some really high quality hardware that was ruggedized for the ag environment, right? Under his understanding of the space understanding what the quality specs are for a lot of these manufacturing companies was really impressive to me. So he's built some really impressive hardware and also software that goes along with that. And one of his customers, which was really impressive, was called a company. Sorry, they're called Amos Power. They're based out of the same area, Cedar Rapids area.
Sure.
So it's a fully electric-driven tractor. And so they're a good example of a customer of ours that came to us and basically said, look, we know how to build machinery. We don't understand the technology. Can you do everything for us on that front? And so that we're providing software and hardware in that case. But there's also customers that we talk to that say, look, we have good hardware. We just need software to be able to do this better. And that's where we can support them. So it's a little bit of an a la carte solution, but the combined Red Shield and LSA, we have a pretty full package that we can offer to any OEM.
Right. So you're not going to exactly, at least not in the immediate future, you're not going to be a solution sitting there on a shelf in like a retail center, like by the Mach.
Right.
I don't know, grain cart add-on system device to increase efficiency by 50%. You're not going to be that. You're going to be working with those companies that are, You're going to be developing their hardware, developing their software solutions. So you'll be in a lot of fields in Iowa farms, but people might not necessarily know you're running their systems, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I think in a lot of cases, most people will have no idea that our technology is behind a solution that they're using. And that's actually okay with us, right? Like our goal with this is to find leading OEMs and empower them with this technology and ensure that they have what they need to deliver a solution to their customers, right? And so we're in a lot of cases going to be behind the scenes enabling some of the technology that you're going to see hit the market in the next few years.
What has market response been? Like, how are these OEMs receiving it? Are they chomping at the bit looking for solutions? Are they more hesitant and more curious? What is that like?
Yeah, it's actually kind of surprising. I think I knew this in the back of my mind because, the entire time I was running SmartAg and we were developing autonomous technology there, I always got calls from OEMs asking if we could help them with a certain solution that they were looking to do. And we just didn't have the capacity to. And then it was kind of the same thing while I was at Raven. We heard from a lot of different manufacturers with ideas about how they wanted to automate equipment or provide an autonomous vehicle to their customer base. And so, I suspected that there was a pretty significant need out there. And, just now, about 2 full weeks into launching the company officially, we've had a chance to talk to a number of different OEMs in the space, and the response has been very positive. I guess I've been impressed with how mature the thinking is. A lot of these companies have decided that autonomy and automation is a key part of their competitive advantage going forward.
Sure, that makes so much sense.
Yep, and so they've put a lot of thought into what they need and the solutions that they're looking for. So it's been positive.
So what are some of the specific, like kind of exciting, like very in the weeds, no pun intended. I don't even know. Yeah, I think you know what I mean. What are some of the specific things that your technology is doing that like someone in the field be like, holy crap, you can do that? Like, well, what are some cool stuff? What are some things that get you excited right now? Yeah,
I would say one of the most, I wouldn't say it's unique, but it's definitely industry leading technologies we have right now is our perception solution. So it's capable of telling the system essentially like, hey, I am seeing a person. This person is in this position and this is what they're doing. Or I've identified that there's a fence line here, or there's a tree here, or there's an animal here, or another vehicle here. And it can specifically tell you what it sees and where it sees it. Which is really important if you're trying to navigate around things and avoid any situation that wouldn't be safe. So to me, the fact that we've got a solution that it's pretty much one of the best that I've seen in the space to date, where it can detect that, and then it can also incorporate radar and LiDAR technology as well to give you a broader picture. Another really unique aspect of what we can offer is what we call sort of GPS denied navigation. So a lot of companies out there are reliant solely on GPS and very high accuracy GPS to navigate an unmanned vehicle. One of the things that's been developed with LSA is the ability to actually navigate in an environment under a canopy, a tree canopy, like in orchards.
Oh, sure. I didn't even think about that.
Yep. And so that's really unique and exciting as well, where they can accurately navigate a vehicle without GPS.
I can't wait till you develop like in Mission Impossible, the tiny little bees or the little bugs. I can't wait till you see you develop those, and then those will actually chase off all the bugs in the fields. And then you can make a bigger, like coyote-size one that chases off deer. I'm really excited to see you develop that stuff.
There we go.
That's what I want to see. Let me know when that happens, and we'll invite you back on the show. Colin Hurd, CEO of Mach. Colin, if people want to reach out to you and learn more about what you are doing, obviously you're in the Ames Technology Park. If people want to reach out to you, how do they do that?
Yeah, I mean, they're welcome to reach out via the website. There's contact information on there, and that's mach.io. And then also look me up on social media, LinkedIn.
Thank you, Colin. I appreciate you being on the Iowa podcast.
Thanks for having me, Justin.
And to my fellow Iowans, Iowa expats, and Iowans at heart, thanks for listening and subscribing to the Iowa podcast.